Polish Bottle and Betta Fish Acrylic Painting Tutorial by HotPinkZebraPaper. So this is the painting that I'm going to be showing you today, and if you're interested in seeing how I prepped for it, found photos of it, sketched it, and all of that, there's a separate video for that, and I'll put a link to that in the description box. But for this video, I'm going to first be painting the background of my painting with a really pretty bright raspberry color that I guess it's not anywhere close to the actual color of raspberries. It's kind of the color people say raspberry. Like when somebody says something is watermelon flavored, you know it's not going to taste like actual watermelon. It's going to taste like fake watermelon. Well, this is a fake raspberry color. And so then after that, I added another layer of that color around the bottom of the polished bottle, and then I blended in some black and some white. When light goes through glass, it creates shadows and rings, and then little highlights where the light intensifies through the rings as well. So you kind of get this wave pattern going around the bottom of the polished bottle with the glass. So then inside the polished bottle, I'm going to be painting it with a one shade lighter, so just ever so slightly lighter of that same pink. Not painting the brush of the polished bottle that's like attached to the lid or the body of the fish, but I am painting over his fins just because those are kind of see-through, so I need that pink beneath them. And then inside the plastic part of the polished straw brush, I am going to paint it with the darker shade, the same as the background, and then over the brush itself, I'm going to be painting that black. And so this is a combination of a couple different polish bottles that I just combined to get all the looks that I wanted, but for the most part, they usually have black bristles and then a clear plastic little brush. And so then with some gray, I'm just going to be blending that in, and I added the little wire part that holds the brush into the plastic, then blending some of that in throughout the brush itself. And then with black again, I'm going to take and add little hair details for the individual bristles and just kind of fan out the brush a little bit, make it a little less perfect. And then with diluted black and white, I'm going to be defining the little, I want to say straw, the little plastic part of the brush that holds it in place, like the handle, but it's not the handle because that's the cover. I don't know what to call it. I guess I'm just going to go with straw. So then with bright blue, I'm going to be painting my little betta fish, and I went over, and that bright blue is not very opaque, which I chose for that specific reason, because then when you go over the background and over the brush, little bits of the color are showing through. So now as I'm adding all the other details, less of it is showing through, more and more. Oh man, I hope that makes sense. But I'm going to be adding some white on the tips of the fins, and then some charcoal and some green, and just really making them look really feathery and really light and flowy and pretty. And so I did that over all of the tail fin, the pectoral fin, the dorsal fin, all of that. And the white that I did on the ends that's also a diluted color, so that some of that pink shows through. And so then for his pelvic fin, which is that little one that kind of tucks in a little more, I'm going to be adding some burgundy into that. So it's the same colors, but just a little bit more, some burgundy too. And then I'm going to add another layer over the body, and then make his back, got a nice light section on it, and then a charcoal shadow around the base or the bottom of his body. And then on his face, their faces are darker, so I'm going to take some more of that burgundy color and blend that in, as well as some charcoal. And then once I have that, I'm also going to add his eye. And when I did his face, I used a dabbing motion. I don't want this to be super smooth in appearance. You know, kind of like it's got the sort of scaly look. And then with charcoal paint, once again, I'm going to go through and outline every little scale on his back. So I started with just one row and then continued to spread out further and further from that one. And as I get towards the top of his body, you're going to want to make them really short, because as they're going up over to give it that curved appearance, they have to get smaller. And so you just make them less, you know, really short, really not very long. Really short, not very long. Both of those. And then that's the same thing when you get to the bottom. And so then I'm going to take those first ones that we did right along the middle of his body and highlight them with a couple little dabs of white paint on each scale. Doesn't take too much, just a little bit to really give that some dimension. So now to shadow my polished bottle, I'm taking diluted paint again and just sort of washing over it. This is very similar to what it would feel like to do watercolor paint. And I know that I've mentioned in previous videos that you don't want to dilute paint because that makes it less strong. It's a weaker product, and it has chances of flaking. Now that chance of flaking is, say, 150 years down the road. You still don't want that to happen, obviously, but when it's not the very first layer of paint, the risk of that and the concern is not there. And so I'm not too worried about doing this, especially since there's just little bits, and so I'm okay with that. I just wanted to mention that, since I've said before you don't want to dilute your paint too much. I'm okay with that in this circumstance. It's just like to do a wash in the background. So now I'm going to be highlighting it with some diluted white paint. And for the polish bottle, I went around and created the waterline, and I added some little just shadows and highlights. And when you're painting glass or water, in this case, and water, you want to just do lots of highlights, lots of shadows, and just really make it look like it's got some movement in it. And I know that that's not really telling you much. It's something that you kind of have to play around with and see what works for you, and really study some photographs and really look to see how things are reacting. And so then with full strength white, I'm going to be adding some little highlights. And I also want to say that I took some of that blue for my fishy, and I put little reflections of that on the water surface and then down in the bottom of the glass. And so then I'm also taking some black and really deepening some of those shadows to make those really stand out and jump out. Water is something I've always enjoyed painting. It's kind of been one of my favorite pastimes and a subject that I've painted on several occasions. So I do this all the time, and so I've kind of grown accustomed to it. But like I said, it really does take some study to figure out exactly how water looks, because it's weird to think about painting something that's clear. And so for the lid, I wanted that to be chrome. And so first I just went with a layer of gray, and now I'm going to be blending in all sorts of colors. I stuck with black, white, green, brown, pink, and blue for the most part. And that is pretty much what I used. And this is another thing, that painting chrome is kind of like painting water, because you're painting something that's a mirror, that's a reflection. And so once again, that's just kind of weird to do, to think about, because it doesn't have the same properties that you normally think of, and it's different. And so same thing, look at a photograph, look at a couple photographs, really look at a bottle that's got a chrome lid, do just some visual study and practice. So I don't know if you've noticed that, nobody in my family noticed this, which I thought was actually kind of funny, but my little zebra is in there because my zebra is painted on my phone case. So I took a picture of a chrome polish lid with my phone, and then when I was looking at the photograph, I'm like, oh my goodness, I can see it because I can see my phone, and that little black circle, that would be my camera. And because, like I said, you want to study a photograph and you want to really try to replicate it. And I mean, you can change things, that's fine. You can combine photographs, all that's good. But I liked the idea of having that little zebra, my little zebra stuck in there, just because it was actually in the photograph. And it's on the side. And the other thing with doing this chrome is you want to elongate everything that you paint up and down. It's going to make it a lot more, it's kind of a little distorted. It's not like a mirror that's actually realistic, at least I think. You know, mirrors are usually pretty realistic. Sometimes ones that are all old and eroded aren't, but I'm really getting off topic here. Chrome stuff like this lid, it's all distorted. It's kind of like a fun mirror. It's stretched out a little bit. It's curved around the sides. So you don't want to just paint a whole bunch of images on there. You have to kind of stretch them, which once again will help if you have a photograph of what exactly it is you're painting. And you want to just keep adding stuff in. Painting this chrome lid was probably about half of my painting time on this, just because there's so much to do in there, and I have a tendency to over detail my work, I know that, and so I kept looking at it and be like, no, just a little bit more here, a little bit more there, and I did that for a long time. But here's the end result, and I'm really happy with it. I love fish and I love polish, so it works out really well, and I hope you like it too. And check out my Facebook and Instagram accounts to see more of my art, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!